hello and welcome to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I am Raf Diallo. Just want to apologise for the technical difficulties we had on this segment last week, but as a politician I can't promise that it's never going to happen again because, of course, I'm not in the business of making promises that I cannot keep. So if it does happen again, I apologise in advance. This, like last week, we're going to have 2 episodes again this Monday with Rachel Graham and Maeve de Burka talking about the women's game, and that's going to be out later on. But right now I'm joined by Richie Towell and Keith Treacy, both non-political figures, thankfully, but who are going to give their very honest opinions. And very political question at the beginning, which is Arsenal. I know you sometimes have accused me of not bringing them up when things are going well, but this is in a context of the wider game, obviously, because I suppose styles of play, the League of Ireland, of course, is affected by that, national team games as well. But just in terms of the way Arsenal have approached the season and the narrative around them, where, there's all this talk about their cynicism from set pieces and the time wasting and all of that. Does that bother you as a supporter? And do you think that's actually a wider issue in the game now?
It doesn't bother me in the slightest, to be honest. I find the criticism that Arsenal are getting over the style of play absolutely baffling. The one thing that I sort of understand is it takes Arsenal an age to get set pieces going again, but I also understand that if you're in the opposition line and you're thinking there's a corner coming in now and 45 seconds later you're still waiting on that corner, you just get that little bit more edgy. So I wouldn't have liked it as an opposition player, but I totally look, when Arsenal get a corner, I sit on the edge of my seat thinking, here we go. There's never been another team that were that good at set pieces. But Raf, when you look at what Arteta has done, he took over in 2019. Arsenal finished 8th with 56 points. The next season, they finished 8th again, but they had 61 points. And the 2021-22 season, 69 points and finished 5th. 22, 23, 24, they finished second with 84, 89, and they finished last season with 74 points. So it's been improvement year on year on year. Take the style of play away from it. All indicators are pointing that Arsenal are getting better domestically. They've been right at the top of the tree. I know they haven't won the Premier League, but they've been very, very close. In terms of the European stuff, they finished top of the Champions League this season. They've beaten Bayern Munich, they've beaten Inter Milan, they've beaten Atletico Madrid. They've been outstanding in the Champions League. So domestically and in Europe, the style of play that Arsenal is playing is getting rewards and getting results. So when Fabian Hürzeler comes out and says the style of play is grating on me, the set pieces, it's never in play, I couldn't care less. If I was Mikel Arteta, I'd be thinking that is absolutely music to my ears. All you're saying to me is you don't like playing against Arsenal. Yeah. Why would you? Why would you want to play against a team that are notoriously, they do the basics well.
They're winners. Absolute winners.
They're winners. All that I care about is winning. I don't care if it's ugly now. The game against Mansfield and the game against Brighton, Arsenal weren't great. But if they had a more complicated style game plan, they could have easily lost those 2 games. But the fact that it's a little bit more direct and they lean into set pieces and they defend well, why is that highlighted as a negative? Pep Guardiola comes into England and he convinces everybody this is the style of play, and if you want to win, you have to play this style of play. I don't buy into that narrative whatsoever, and there's always more than one way to win a game of football. And Arsenal defensively are excellent in the middle of the park. Marino has scored 4 goals, Zubamendi has scored 5, Rice has scored 4, Eze has 6, and the lads up the top end of the park, they've scored 59 goals in the Premier League, which is the same as Manchester City, by the way. So is there any indicators other than the eye test saying Arsenal are doing everything they need to do? And I'm loving it. We're in the final of the EFL Cup, we're in the last 8 of the FA Cup, we're in the last 16 of the Champions League, and I would back us to get past Leverkusen, and we're top of the Premier League. What's not to like?
Congratulations on the quadruple. But anyway, just in terms of...
You're not the first one to congratulate me on that, by the way.
I love Arteta. I watched the documentary, the All or Nothing one. I just loved everything about him. I think he's a real winner. And you can see, I think when a manager goes in and they build a proper culture, and you see every single player that he signs, they buy into what Arsenal are doing. To have every player doing that, and it's not players coming in for 10, 15, 20 million. It's lads like Declan Rice coming in, big money. Viktor Gyokeres, I played with Viktor myself. I did elite mentality. He's only going to get better as well. But when you have lads with them big price tags coming in and they buy into the culture, you know in the background that the manager's doing something right.
Yeah, in terms of playing with Viktor Gyokeres, what was he like back then? Obviously, it's a long time ago, and then later on he goes to Lisbon and he really kicks on. And obviously, there's a lot of question marks about him in the first few months that he's been at Arsenal. Like, what was he like, I suppose, on and off the pitch?
Yeah, I think what separates Viktor from everyone else is elite mindset. He obviously had it quite tough at Brighton. He was really young at Brighton. He was, Raf. We were going through a stage where we were going from Championship to the Premier League, and like that year, the club were going out and spending millions and millions trying to compete with the big boys in the Premier League. And for a young player to get an opportunity at that stage is going to be really difficult. He obviously went out to Coventry. He done absolutely brilliant there. He obviously went then over to Lisbon and done terrific. And he didn't hit the heights that everybody probably thought and would have wanted at the start of the season, but he's flying now. You've seen him against Spurs, 2 weeks ago. He was absolutely brilliant. He leads the line really well, and I don't think right now he is going to be that striker that's getting you 20, 25 goals a season, but he could potentially be in a starting lineup of a team who's winning the Premier League, Champions League. That speaks volumes in itself, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then I was going to ask you just about that, the style of play issue as well, but maybe more in the context of the League of Ireland. Pep Guardiola's success has had an impact, I suppose, across different leagues, including over here, where you see split centre backs, everything is played out from the back. Do you feel the game is changing overall, I suppose, globally, and including here with, I suppose, the more sort of very set piece oriented style of play that's around now?
Yeah, I think it's very evident. You see Shamrock Rovers, they were always, if you're comparing a little bit, they probably would have been like the Man City type team where they're always in control, the possession-based team, always in control, want to create loads of chances, create overloads out wide, play with a box in midfield. So if you're comparing, it's very similar. But you even see Shamrock Rovers now, you see Graham Burke going out to take long throw-ins. Every time there's a wide set play or a corner, it's going into the box. Teams are starting to change, and I think a big one of them is Brentford. You see what Keith Andrews is doing there at Brentford. Absolutely fantastic job, and it's probably based on a lot of set plays, which football's about that as well, Raf. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about the pure stuff. Look, everybody likes the easy on the eye stuff, what you're watching and playing out from the back, playing through the lines and scoring goals. But sometimes it gets down to the nitty gritty, especially if you want to go and win leagues. It can't just be silky football all the time.
Yeah. It's like style has gone before substance all of a sudden. Yeah. When I played, it was always substance over style.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I couldn't care less. If somebody said to me, Keith, they're going to have 99% of the ball, but you'll win 1-0. Shake your hand and walk away. No problem. I don't want to entertain people. I know people say it's an entertaining business. I couldn't care less. If Arsenal stink the house out for the rest of the season and go and win the Premier League, do you think I'm going to be saying, not too happy with that? I couldn't care less. Win a game of football. If you can entertain along the way, great, but it's always substance over style for me.
Except on this podcast where we have to be more than monosyllabic and actually have to speak a bit. We've got live Champions League this week, Richie, which is on Wednesday, so RT2 and the RT Player from 7:30. Real Madrid against Man City. It doesn't feel like much of a novelty because they seem to meet every season in the last wee while. Like, where are you kind of sat in terms of where that game is going to go, at least the first leg?
Like, it's actually crazy that you look at it and you think Man City are big favourites for the game. Real Madrid's injury crisis is through the roof at the moment. I'd love to know what the S&C are doing at Real Madrid at the moment with all the injuries that they have. It's absolutely crazy. They were very, very lucky to scrape a win on Friday night against Celta Vigo. Valverde, obviously, he's one of their mainstays, isn't he? He's one of their leaders now. He got a 95th minute goal. City are off the back of an unbelievable win away from home against Newcastle, especially going 1-0 down against Newcastle. It's not an easy place to go at the best of times. So to go 1-0 down and show the character to come back and win convincingly, I'm sure they're going to bounce over to the Bernabeu and be in full spirits, especially going up against a Real Madrid side who are really struggling at the moment.
Yeah, so that is Wednesday, 7:30, RT2 and the RT Player first leg. And then obviously we're going to have the second leg of one of the other many last 16 games next Wednesday as well at the same time. But let's talk about the League of Ireland. And Shamrock Rovers beat Derry 1-0 at Tallaght Stadium. Late penalty from Dylan Watts. But going into the game, I presume from your point of view, this was a bigger game for Derry than it ever was for Shamrock Rovers in terms of at this point of the season.
Yeah, I think Shamrock Rovers, having a look at them, I don't think we've learned anything new. I still think they're the best team in the league. They haven't quite got going just yet in terms of free-flowing football. There's been little bits and bobs that I've looked at and thought, yeah, that's the Shamrock Rovers, I know, but there's also been little weaknesses here or there. But I take your point, Raf. I do think it was a bigger game for Derry. I've been unimpressed with what Derry have done so far this season. I know they fought back from 2-0 down and they showed that bit of bite. But the first game of the season against Sligo, when I went up to the Brandywell, there was such a good feel, and it was bouncing, and James McLean's first game, and you just thought whatever happens here, Sligo were just, you know, lambs to the slaughter. It didn't turn out like that. They were so flat, and I'm not looking for the full football performance because there's a lot of new signings in there, but they just don't look to have the bite, and they don't look to be pressing like a team unit, and that's something that should be worked at on the training ground. And getting lads to run and press is the easiest thing you can do. When you get the football involved, it becomes a little bit more difficult because there's a lot of variance, but when the ball is in a certain area, you should be able to press properly. I don't see Derry giving us a title race. Now, they might be able to click into some sort of form, but unimpressed and don't expect a title race out of Derry is how I'd sum up their first couple of games.
Yeah, and you were in Tala, Richie, for that, doing commentary for the game. So the game you were watching, there's 71% possession for Shamrock Rovers, completely dominant. Derry have, I think, 4 shots and none on target. Obviously, a lot of this is going to be built in terms of the midfield battle. So where and how were Shamrock Rovers winning that?
Just to touch on what Keith said there first, I absolutely agree. I don't know Derry's style of play still. Yeah. I don't know if they're a pressing team. I don't know if they're a team that sit in the mid to low block and look to play in transition. They seem to change their style of play weekly. Now, I guess sometimes you have to adapt to different games, but I think you need to have your own way of playing first and foremost, and then you can have slight little tweaks. When I'm looking at them, I'm just thinking they're just playing off the cuff every single week.
Don't assert themselves.
Yeah, there's no them. They have their own stamp on the game. You know, if you come up against Shamrock Rovers, they're going to play 3 at the back, they're going to play wing backs, they're going to play a box in the middle every single week. They might change it slightly when they go and play in Europe, but you know they have a style of play. They like to play out from the back, play through the thirds, and that's how they do it. When I'm watching Derry, I'm really struggling to see what they're doing at the moment. I know results haven't probably been the worst for them, but it's always, for me, performance-based first. If the performance is not there, then that's where there's a real problem. And as you said, Raf, the midfield was a big problem for them. Rovers played the box in there, so they had Matt Healy, Victor Oshinvune, Graham Burke and Jack Bourne, and they were absolutely brilliant for them, especially Jack Bourne. I think Jack Bourne coming back into the league, obviously he went over to Dubai for football terms, but he went over for a little holiday, I think, and I think it's done him great. I think he's come back, he looks really fit, he looks strong, he looks really sharp. Every time I seen him on the ball, which he was on the ball a lot, he just looked like he wanted to create something. That's the Jack Bourne we all know and we all love, and to have him back in the league playing at such a level, it's only going to bring good things to the league. And Shamrock Rovers just dominated the midfield. Look, Derry have obviously James McLean, Adam O'Reilly, they had James Clark in there, but they just got overrun. There was a lot of hustle and bustle with the Derry midfield, but I felt like they really lacked creativity in there. And I get Tiernan Lynch, he was probably looking at it thinking Shamrock Rovers are going to have the lion's share of possession. Let's go with 3 lads that have energy and legs in there. It just didn't work out for them on the day.
And what do you feel need to address most urgently, just based on what you've seen of them so far?
Oh, that's a good question, Raf. Honestly, because they're leaking goals at the back far too easy. If you take Michael Duffy out of the team, I don't think there's any attacking threat with them. So like as Keith said, I think they need to get onto the pitch and stamp their own authority on a game, have their own style of play and take it from there. Yeah, in terms of Adam Brennan then as well, just as a former winger, he's obviously important to what happens in terms of the results because he wins the penalty now. It was very clumsy for Conor Barr as well in there. But what have you made of him so far and just the way he commits players?
Yeah, electric. I really like watching him. There's so many young wingers that come on the scene and you think, I love it. Every time he gets the ball, he runs at people, and then you fast forward 2 or 3 years when they've been in the first team and you think, they're not doing that anymore.
It's coached out of them.
Coached out of them. It gets coached out of everybody. It got coached out of me when I went to Blackburn. People are roaring at you, don't lose the ball. And you start to think, maybe I'm a little bit of a liability. Every time I run at people, I'm losing it half the time. I would urge Stephen Bradley and the Shamrock Rovers players that every time they give the ball to him, just tell him to get at people, because the left back and the right back, the one thing they don't want is a winger who constantly runs at them. And now he might lose the ball 3 out of 5 times when he runs at people, but the great thing about being a winger is you can be quiet for 89 minutes, but if you go past the left back or right back and chip it in and you get an assist, people go, he was brilliant today. Just keep giving it to him. I love watching him, Raf, and you say it was a silly tackle on him, but he gets in behind and he puts people under pressure. He makes them make those decisions. So, yeah, he's a really high ceiling, and I hope Stephen Bradley, which obviously a wonderful coach, encourages that side of him and doesn't get too bogged down with the possession style of stuff.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be here for too much longer, Raf.
No.
It's crazy. Like he's only played a handful of games. What, 4 or 5 games now? I think a team championship level, maybe even a little bit higher, could come in and take a gamble on him come June. And it's Steve Bradley probably won't thank me for saying that, because he'll want to keep him, especially going into European competitions. You need to have a player like that can take you from A to B up the pitch. Because it's not Shamrock Rovers don't get to assert their style of play in Europe all the time, so they need to have a ball carrier. So it's really, really important that they hold on to him. But I think it's going to be hard with the level of performance that he's at.
Yeah, and I think actually, apparently, according to the Mirror at least, he was included in what is the Ireland provisional squad now.
Yeah.
Not to get too excited, the provisional squad is maybe like a list of whatever number of
Keith was
players.
on that as well.
Yeah, I think I was just outside.
Well, you made it in as well to the main squad many a time as well. But I think he's in there with Matt Healy, Dawson Devoy, and then Ed McGinty as well. Now, very unlikely any of them get in, although we were speaking about Devoy last week. But I did want to ask you about the full backs, the 2 right backs. So Barry Cotter, who's been brought into Derry City, and then Sobowale as well at Shamrock Rovers. Both of them know the league, but they're back in from various spells across the water. What have their performances been like for both clubs?
I don't think both of them have reached the heights of what I think they know they can do. I obviously played with Barry Cotter. Athletically, he's a machine. He is. Physically, he's really quick, really strong, powerful. Technically, he's really good as well. He's gone through a long spell now, Raf, where he hasn't had consistent football. And Keith, you know yourself, if you're not getting consistent football, it's hard to build up a bit of momentum. So look, that's only a second game for Derry now. I think over the next probably 5 or 6 weeks, I think that's when you'll see the real Barry Cotter, because before he left to go over to England, when he was playing for St. Pat's, he obviously was at us, had a little spell like that, a little bit inconsistent, went to Pat's, played every week and was absolutely fantastic, got his move and just deserved it. So it's going to be really interesting to now see how he goes. On the flip side of that, for Sabasuele, I'm a bit unconvinced by him so far. He looks a little bit unorthodox when he's playing. It's going to be really interesting to see how he fits into Shamrock Rovers' style of play, especially because they're a possession-based team. I'm not sure if that's his main strength, so it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, now you were over to watch Pats and Shelbourne at Talca Park, and that was for Virgin, and obviously it ended up being a very exciting game where we're talking about Arsenal and set pieces and things, and that was very much at the heart of what Pats did in terms of winning 3-2.
Yeah, and so often we talk about, Dublin derbies or any game, even a London derby across the water. You're thinking there's so much talent on show that you're expecting somebody to dribble past 7 or 8 players and smack it in the top bin. But so often it will come down to set pieces, and if you defend them properly and attack them properly, you have a great chance of winning the game. It turns out, I will call it, the Shelbourne and Pat's game a great game, but the first 45 minutes was very, very forgettable. I don't remember an awful lot of action in the first 45 minutes, but the second 45 was brilliant. Edmondson's goal was wonderful, wonderful goal. Any young boy or girl watching that, technically, have a look at how he watches it onto his foot and how he keeps his knee over the ball. Very easy to trash that one, wildly anywhere, but the control and technique on it was wonderful. Brilliant hit for him. And then he goes and gets the second, and Pats are 2-0 up, and you're thinking there's only one winner here. Shelbourne haven't really thrown a punch in an attacking sense. And then Harry Wood picks up the ball on the left wing and decides to be 4 or 5 Pats players dancing across the 18-yard box, and he gets played in. And when he's in behind, Raf, he's in a crossing position, and Joey Anang comes out, and for me, he just gets his angles all wrong, Joey. He shouldn't get beat at his near post. I'm not sure if Harry Wood tries to cross or he sees that little gap. I will give him the benefit of the doubt. He must have seen that gap and he manages to squeeze it in. Poor goalkeeping, brilliant finish, and a brilliant, the second brilliant goal in the game. Then Martin gets a tap in. Joey Anang makes a wonderful save, taps it onto the post. Martin follows up and makes it 2-2. And then you're thinking, there's only one winner in this game now. Shelbourne have all the momentum. Let's see what's going to happen. And Max Mata jumps in the last minute and nods one in from close range. The marking from, I think it was Kelly at the back post. Forgive me if I'm wrong, if I'm name checking Kelly and I'm wrong. I believe it was him. Mata gets free and it's a wonderful header. So Edmondson getting the goal. Mata getting the goal is brilliant from a St. Pat's point of view. That's 3 wins on the bounce now, and they've got 2 winnable games coming up. So if they can somehow jump that into 5 wins on the bounce, Pats will look impressive. And the fact that they've got no European football this season, I expect them to be fitter and sharper than all the other teams that are in Europe. So it's starting to take shape, Pats. I like what I'm seeing. Keane Levy is somebody that every time I watch him, I think, I love watching you, Keane, but you've got to start scoring goals and you've got to start providing assists. Otherwise, they're just decent performances and it's not enough to get you to the next level. Palmer is somebody that, if he stays fit, Pats fans keep telling me he's a brilliant, brilliant player. I need to see him over like a block of 10 games to give you a real insight into what I think about him. But Keane, Edmondson, Mata, Palmer, Levy. I know Forrester is getting a little bit older, but he'll still chip in and out with little bits of brilliance. So, yeah, as long as Pats stay defensively solid, I think they'll have a good season. But from Michelle's point of view, that injury list has just got Kerr McEnroy's name added to it. That was it was a hard one to watch when he buckled
twisted
his
ankle,
twisted his ankle. And to be fair to him, he got up and he gave it a go. And I don't know whether he probably done himself more damage in the long run, but out of all the injuries that they have at the minute, Shelbourne, Kerr McEnroy is probably one that they just can't afford.
Yeah. The game kind of went away from them then, didn't it?
Yeah.
You could see St. Pat's got a lot more control of the game. He's the similar to Matt Healy at Shamrock Rovers. He's the one who controls the tempo of the game. He's the one who gets on the ball and dictates play. And if he's going to be missing, that's going to be a really big miss for him.
Yeah, especially Jack Henry Francis, I think, was named on the bench, but he didn't come on. Now maybe he's close to return. And just in terms of what was behind Sean Boyd, because Sean Boyd didn't have his most effective game. Obviously, you have Freitas, the new lad who's come in. You have Harry Wood, who, very interesting, seems to drift in, even out of possession from one wing. And then we've seen Jarvis in the league before with Shells, where he was brilliant for half a season, then went back across the water. How did all that dovetail behind Boyd, and how much did it help or not help him? And especially with Freitas, because he's, again, new to the league and we're just kind of sort of getting to know him.
Yeah, Freitas looked a little bit off it, to be honest, and I think Joey agreed with me because he hooked him fairly early. He looked a little bit weak in the physical battle, although if I was Freitas and there's balls coming up to my head, I'd be saying, what are you kicking it to me for? Kick it to Sean Boyd. I'm here for the seconds, not for the firsts. So I think that's a little tweak they will need to work on. There was so often, Raf, that Shelbourne get the ball high on the left wing and you're thinking, you've got Sean Boyd, Freitas is next to him, you've got Harry Wood in the mixer, cross the ball, and they don't. They come back out and you think, you've had 45 minutes of trying to break Pats down and you haven't really got there. So start putting balls in the box. Sean Boyd is there. He's brilliant in the air. And if he doesn't win it, the Pats centre half is not going to get a clean contact. So the second balls become really important. I just don't think they use Sean Boyd as much as they should have. Although I don't think Sean was at the races, to be honest. So maybe the Shells players are thinking, look, we're having a little look. He's not really at the races. We'll try and go about it a different way. But when you lose Kerr McEnroy in the middle of the park, I think you lose an awful lot of stability and you've got to just get it out wide and think, we'll go about it a different way. So if you're using Boyd, if you're starting Boyd, you've got to use his attributes and get the ball out wide and cross it. I like the Harry Wood one when they don't have the ball, he'll be out wide. When they do, he's like an inverted winger that just creeps inside into the number 10 position. Very difficult to mark him when he's like that, but I think Shells have got an awful lot to work on. I know Joey before the game has already said that they feel they've left a couple of points behind. He will feel exactly the same about the Pats game, given the fact it was 2-2 in the 94th minute or something. So yeah, I think Shells have a little bit of improvement to do, as does everybody really. I think the most impressive team has been Bows, but I think when Europe comes along, if they do well in Europe, Bows, I think that could hurt them in the league.
Yeah, we'll come to Bowes in a second. Just in terms of the set piece goals, and obviously the first one wasn't directly from a set piece, but James Brown was the player in terms of, again, we're talking wing backs, full backs from the right hand side. His balls in really made a real difference. Like, he's someone who I think he did really well. Drogheda United, then went across the water. Obviously came back very late in the window and seems to have hit the ground running.
That's exactly, he has hit the ground running, hasn't he? Now, we probably had the benefit of, he was probably halfway through a season over in England, so he's come back in and he's fighting fit. You could see him, he's up and down for literally 90 plus minutes he is, which is great to see. And not just that, and his energy levels, his deliveries in was brilliant. I have big question marks about Shelbourne's defending. Keith's right. Daniel Kelly was marking Edmondson for one of the goals. I think young James Roach was marking Max Mata. They're two big, powerful boys they are. For me, I'm wanting the likes of Sean Boyd or one of my big centre halves to be grabbing a hold of them, and they just didn't do it. So that's something for Joey O'Brien that he definitely needs to look at.
Yeah, isn't that like, if you see that on the pitch, Raf, if you're a player and you see that mixed match, you go, I'm not having that. And by the way, that just doesn't happen by design. That would be on the walls in the dressing room. I'm marking him, and you go,
that's why I couldn't believe it.
I don't fancy that match. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, but that's not a match you would fancy.
I couldn't believe what I was watching when I seen the boys marking them. I was just thinking, even if even if it is up on the wall and you think, you're looking at it and you think that doesn't look right, one of the senior players has to step in there. But as you said, they were missing Kieran McEnroy, they're missing Paddy Barrett, they're missing their most influential leaders. So that's probably one of the reasons as well.
Yeah, and that's the theme also, as you mentioned, Bows as well, 1-0 win with Sam Todd scoring as well against Waterford. Waterford's defending for the corner that led to the only goal in that game was a little bit questionable, especially letting a ball bounce in the box from a corner.
Yeah, it's one of the basics of football. Don't let the ball bounce. If you're a defending player and the ball bounces, once it bounces, you're in no man's land. And I've always hate being caught under the ball. I'm sure Richie feels the same. If the ball is coming and it bounces and you're standing under it, waiting for it to come, you're thinking, you can see players coming in, making up the ground, and it's just panic station. So I always think it's a technical thing. I know from a corner it's different, but when you see centre midfielders, when a ball gets cleared out and you think, I let that bounce and then I control it, I think you're basically telling me technically you don't back yourself. That's why you're letting it bounce. But yeah, balls bouncing in 6-yard box from balls in are a pet hate of mine, and defenders should always win the first contact, or at least try to.
Yeah, and this is the first mention now in terms of Bows, but again, another clean sheet as well, and third clean sheet from 3 on the road as well, which is massive, and obviously it takes 1 goal to win a game in that situation.
Yeah, and you know what? They probably should have been 3 or 4-0 up at half time. I heard John Daly after the game saying if he had been able to make 2 or 3 substitutions after a half an hour, he would have. It was only that he wanted to change the formation and he wanted to get a little bit more information over to the boys. So that'll probably tell you the dominance first and foremost that Bohemians started with, but how poorly Waterford started, especially at home. You're coming up against a team who are really dominant at this stage. You kind of have to meet fire with fire, Raf, and Waterford didn't do that. And if you allow a good team like Bohemians to have control possession of the ball, the likes of Devoy, Tierney, Rooney, these will cut you open all day long. And Waterford were really lucky to be only 1-0 down at half time. Now there was big improvements in the second half, and they probably could have went on and got an equaliser, but I think Bohemians were deserved winners, and they have started off incredible. They have. I don't think anybody probably gave them a hope of winning the league. If they keep playing the way they are, they will most definitely be up there or thereabouts.
Yeah,
I think a name that'll be highlighted, Raf, with all the attacking players that Bows have, with Tierney, Devoy, Rooney, Cullen Whelan. Patrick Hickey is somebody that he's come in at the centre of defence. The opening game of the season, I had him down as in the 10 or maybe as a striker, and then we realised he's playing centre half. With set pieces becoming more and more prominent, having somebody that will win his balls into the box in both boxes is absolutely invaluable. Now, he won't get the headlines. He won't be Patrick Hickey 8 out of 10 man of the match every game, but he is invaluable. And if he can play centre half, centre midfield and up front, he's gold dust to that Bows team.
Him and Sam Todd have built up a really good partnership so far. Normally it takes a little bit of time for 2 new centre-halves, especially someone who's after been playing in the 10 or up front, to go back and build up a new partnership with 2 players who joined the club together at the same time. They're very, very new together, and if they can keep building on their partnership, Bohemians are going to be a shoe-in for thereabouts.
Yeah, any worries about Waterford? There's only a point so far from the season. Obviously, they had the penalty miss that Paul Hammond had against Sligo Rovers, which would have changed obviously where they are in the table.
Yeah, I'm looking at them, and I don't think they get Paul Hammond into the game enough. I think they do a lot, for want of a better word, a lot of faffing around. You think, just get the ball up to your better players. Again, style of play is probably something that John Daly is putting ahead of actually 3 points. Well, we'll knock it around, we'll try and do this. When they played Drogheda, I watched them live and I just looked and think, there's a very little width in your game, very, very little width. And when Drogheda are playing 5 at the back, every time the ball goes into the middle of the pitch, they just hunt you. So they need to go a different way about it, but get Podge Hammond involved in the game more. And if Podge can get between 10 and 15 goals this season, that might be the difference between Waterford staying in the league or not. But I think if you were to say to John Daly, we'll give you 9th now, he'd probably rip your hand off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then Galway and Dundalk drew 2-2 as well at Eamon DC Park. Now, from Dundalk point of view, they still haven't got a win this season, but they've had 4 draws, which kind of looks good. And the thing is, they stayed in the game long enough to actually get the equaliser in the end.
They started the game brilliantly, Raf. And
finished it brilliantly as well. Yeah,
so right up to half time, Dundalk were the better team. I spoke about Derry after having good results, but poor performances. On the flip side of that, I don't think Dundalk's points marry where they have performance-wise. I think they've come into the league and they've done really well, bar the game against St. Patch, which was a bit of a blip. I know Kieran Kilduff wasn't happy about that, but I think every other game they gave a really, really good account of themselves. I thought they started the game really well down there, got some really good goals. Daryl Horgan has really, really impressed me. Every time I've watched him, he looks like the 25, 26-year-old Daryl Horgan that I played with many years ago now. But he looks brilliant, he does. And you obviously have him there. You have the experience of Cornwall and Buckley through the spine of the team. And then you have the likes of Arubi and Owen Kenny who are causing defences all sorts of problems. So I don't fear for Dundalk as much as I do for the other teams down and around the bottom of the league. So I think they've started really well.
Yeah, and then from a Galway United point of view, now Dundalk's goals were actually kind of direct as well, as we kind of saw. Actually, they were quite similar in terms of one is a long ball played off, etc., and then a set piece. And Galway similarly, although that's probably not a massive surprise in terms of the way they cut Dundalk open for their goals. Yeah,
it's Galway again. I don't think we looking at Galway reinventing the wheel and think this is a totally different Galway. They will try and keep clean sheets. They will ask the questions with balls into the box from every angle again. People, when I say stuff like that, people sort of think I'm highlighting it as a negative. I'm not. They're asking questions which, you highlight the attributes you have available to you. Again, I worry about the goals that Galway have in their team. I like Hurley. I think he's a bit about him. Walsh up front is very, very game. He'll put himself about, but in terms of 10, 15 goals a season, I don't really see it. If he gets between 5 and 10, that's probably more realistic. So you're throwing the emphasis on your wingers and your number 10s to try and chip in with goals. But I think defensively is where Galway's strength are, and the amount of clean sheets they keep will determine where they stay in the league. Because, like I say, I don't think they have an awful lot of goals in them. But
I think Perrault was a good signing for them. But he just, I don't know what's been the story with France. Perrault, he hasn't really played as much as he would have wanted. I don't know whether he has a little injury or something like that, but I think he could be big for them to come in as well. He's that big physical presence. He done really well at Drogheda before he went away, and he's obviously come back into the league now, so it'll be interesting to see how he fits in too.
Yeah, and Chris Twardek's been a good buy as well. Obviously he's not new to the league in the sense he was at Bowes before and did reasonably well while he was there, but he's come off the wing a few times and helped himself to a couple of goals already, including on Friday night.
Yeah, but that's exactly what they'll need. Like I say, I'm not convinced with the out and out strikers that Galway have in terms of goals, so you're throwing emphasis on the likes of Twardek to be able to do that sort of stuff. So look, I think there's probably 5 teams in the League of Ireland that are looking over their shoulders thinking we don't want to finish 10th or 9th, and it's going to be brilliant, and there'll be loads of dramatics between here and there.
Yeah, and then Sligo Rovers on Saturday night, 2-1 winners against Drogheda, and a much needed win for Sligo, of course, Richie. And I suppose the timing, because if you look at the balance of play, the chances, they seem to be on top against Drogheda on the night, at least in that first half, and then Will Fitzgerald scores in what is right at the very end of the first half.
Yeah, really, really unsurprising from Drogheda, the performances. Not just against Sligo, but the game before that as well. I think they need to get back to basics. And it's something that we spoke about, what Keith spoke about Waterford kind of faffing around a little bit with the ball. I felt like Sligo done that a lot when they were playing in the earlier games, and they were just conceding far too many goals. I think they've gone back to basics a little bit more direct, relying on set plays as well. When you have a player like Will Fitzgerald as well, I think he's a really, really good player. He can get you out of all sorts of trouble. They have the likes of Jada Kiki as well. Patton done really well in the game. So John Russell has done a really, really good job at Sligo. He's always up against it. We always say, Raf, don't he loses his best players all the time. They've really gone back to basics, and it's really worked for them.
Yeah, and also Alex Nolan's goal, so the second one, cracking strike as well.
Yeah,
especially
brilliant.
When it comes back to him so quickly.
Absolutely, it's not easy, especially when you're lining up a free kick. You're not expecting the ball to come straight back to you, and when it comes back to you on your weaker foot, show a little bit of confidence to get a strike off. I like Nolan. I do. I think he's a really good player. He hasn't hit the heights that I'm sure everybody down at Sligo would have liked him to hit as soon as he went in. So that'll do his confidence the world of good, it will.
Yeah, so for Drogheda, probably not too many worries at this stage, but it is interesting. A couple of back-to-back defeats, as Richie said, and it's come off the back of all that hullabaloo around the Loud Derby as well. Yeah, not great, the defeat, but again, I'm looking at Drogheda now, the whole host of teams that have a chance of going down or being in the relegation playoff. I would be fairly similar to how Richie feels about Dundalk with Drogheda. I think they'll be absolutely fine by hook or by crook. They will do enough, and yeah, I think they just have enough, don't they? I think they have the know-how. They're so often I look at them and think they'll be in the bottom 2, but they just keep their heads above the water, and I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow jumped on the back of a European race. Yeah, and obviously we're coming to the first Friday, Monday of the season as well, so full round of games on both days, and that it kind of tells you how far into the season we're kind of getting when that's coming. Just looking at the fixture list, I suppose for Derry City it's kind of a huge couple of round of games, Keith, and they're playing Shells at home and then Pats away, and that's massive. Yeah, huge for Derry, and
They really do need to start again. Performances aren't everything. You can win a game and not play very well, but Derry's performances for me have been an indicator into things to come, and I haven't been impressed.
I think the fans want it up there as well, don't they? The fans up there, they want performances. They do. I think even you see they've got some late victories, snatched a draw here and there, but you can see there was a couple of bills even at half time after some of the games. The fans want. The club have heavily invested on the pitch they have, and I think the fans up there want to see a style of football that they deserve. Like.
I'm not so sure about James McLean in the middle either. I mean, I was asked this before James came into Derry, and I thought, he's a centurion. He's played in the Premier League. He's played in the Championship. He'll be absolutely fine in the middle of the park. It's not always as straightforward as that. And when you're playing on the wing,
it's a different game.
It's a much different game because, like I say, you can see the ball coming. You can see the opposition you're up against. But when you're playing there, you've got your back to the opposition and you're not quite sure if you can turn. And an Astro pitch as well, when balls are being bobbled into you and it takes a touch and a half to get it under control, you're generally under an awful lot of pressure. So it's difficult. And although I wouldn't be looking saying James is not doing well in there, I don't think he's excelling either. I think he's just average. And when you've got somebody of James's ability, I throw him out in the wing. I think that's his best position. I think his engine would be highlighted out there. Balls into the box would be highlighted an awful lot more. Although I totally understand Tiernan Lynch saying we'll put him into the middle because of everything he's achieved in his career and his leadership qualities. But I think you're taking away from James having him in the middle of the park, and it's ultimately haunting Derry.
Yeah, it's a hard decision though when you have Fleming who's doing well left backs and Duffy on the other on that side. So it is tougher obviously as well. But Waterford, they've got a couple of good or big games as well. So they have Dundalk and Galway back to back, and these are the kind of head to heads that are important. Yeah, 6 pointers. Yeah,
absolutely. I know it's crazy. We're 4 or 5 games in, and we're saying 6 pointer games, but that's the reality of it, isn't it? Because let's be realistic. Do you see Waterford going like they've had Shells at home? Look, they got a point. They were lucky to get a point in that game. They've lost against Bohemians. Them going away from home, Pats, Rovers, Derry, don't really fancy them pick up anything. So for them, when they're playing teams there around them, they're big games. That especially John Daly has made a lot of new signings. He has. I don't really see any cohesion with them so far. So they really need to get onto the training ground and work on that, because they have a lot of talent in the group. They do. And as Keith said, get the ball up to Podge Almond. He's your main man. He is. He's the one who's going to get you the goals that you need to stay in the league. So they need to get it up there, and no better way to start than the 2 games that they have coming up. Yeah, and just on the first division as well. So the first points dropped for Cork City this season was the big headline, and also a first defeat for Athlone Town. So just to run through the results very quickly, Bray Wanderers 2-1 winners against Athlone on Friday night, and then in the Cork derby, Cove Ramblers and Cork City shared the spoils, 1-1 there. Wexford went to Finn Harps and got a 1-1 draw there as well. And another draw, which is, well, actually they were nearly all draws, but the first one I mentioned, Treaty United and Kerry 2-2, and then no goals between Longford Town and UCD, which brings us now to Ireland. Obviously Prague is getting closer. That match of course on the 26th, Thursday the 26th, at the Fortuna Arena, but Evan Ferguson will undergo surgery on his ankle and will miss the rest of the season, including potentially the World Cup itself if we do qualify. And the Roma manager Gian Piero Gasparini said on Saturday it is now clear that he will finish the season here and will have surgery on his ankle. He will no longer have time to recover even in the end of the season. And obviously there was always a possibility this was going to happen based on what was happening over the last few weeks. Now, Troy Parrott still fit, and I think everybody has the fingers crossed that he makes it, because we're very light in that area. Chidozie Ogbene usually, well, at least in Budapest, was used as the one to stretch the game, but he's hardly playing with Sheffield United after coming back from injury. Adam Ida is also hasn't come back since the injury he picked up, and it leaves us very, very short going to Prague, I suppose, even in terms of having backup and cover for Troy.
Yeah, we're a little bit short, as you say, Raf. Adam Ida hasn't played this year. Ogbene has played 20 minutes since the Hungary game. John Kenny is at Bolton in League One, and Szmodics for me. Look, I know people are saying they'd have Szmodics back in. I think he's hummed and hawed too much, and he's missed games for Ireland, and he's played for his club within, I think it was 2 or 3 days. That to me is prioritising club over country, and I think, to be honest, it's not just the fact that what everything that's gone on in the background with Szmodics. I think the style of play that we've come across now and the 3 wins we've had on the bounce, Szmodics doesn't fit into that. Yeah. And we've 5 at the back, we 3 at midfield, Azaz maybe in the 10 and Parrott up front. Szmodics doesn't fit in anywhere there for me, and it wouldn't have Sammie Szmodics in there. I'd give somebody else a chance, but Yeah, look, I think the Irish team will be hugely confident, and Troy Parrott must be absolutely walking around like a peacock. I mean, I've turned up to these Ireland camps, and you know, I was a fringe player, so I started to put my head down, get into my room and walk on. When Troy gets there, everybody will know. The security will be heightened. The other players, the staff will know. The fans in and around the hotel will know that Troy has just turned up. So look, I give us a great chance. And the Czech Republic, although they have some players we'll all be familiar with, Koufal, Souček, Patrick Schick, playing for Leverkusen as well in the Champions League, they're not a bad team, but they also lost to Faroe Island a couple of months ago in their World Cup qualification campaign. So their levels are very up and down. I give us a great chance, Raf. I think we'll win it. I'm not too fussed who comes in and who comes out of the squad, because I think the lads who started in the last campaign are a shoo-in to start again. The only person I would have question marks over is Seamus Coleman. If he comes into camp and says, I can give you 90 minutes, gaffer, then he starts. Everybody else, if you didn't play against the last two teams, you're not coming in.
Yeah, and Coleman is big for Nathan Collins even. I think Collins seems to play better when Seamus Coleman is there beside him.
When you have a leader next to you, we'll talk, and I know Nathan, people say he's a Premier League captain, Keith. He is a Premier League captain, but they're not his attributes. He sort of inspires by what he does, whereas Seamus will inspire by what he does, set an example, and he'll talk to you. And it's absolutely no coincidence to me that Seamus came in for the last camp and all of a sudden we started to defend them properly.
Yeah, it was interesting. Collins was also dropped by Brentford for a few weeks as well in the last few weeks, although he seems to have come back in. But just in terms of Szmodics as well, so he's on loan at Derby County, obviously after leaving Ipswich. But I remember we never talked about it here, but the quotes from Kieran McKenna just in regard to why Ipswich sent him to Derby. He said, in the end, it wasn't a football decision. It wasn't related to his football performance. It was a decision that was made in the best interests of our group dynamic, of our dressing room culture, of the values of our dressing room and of our team. In those respects, the decision was made that it was best that Sammie wouldn't be with us for the rest of the season. Now, the only thing, Hamer Hallgrimsson has been out to see him. I think it was like six or 7 days ago to have a chat. So he's obviously in the thinking, and given the number of players that could be missing, bar Troy Parrott, just in terms of other options. So if Szmodics isn't in your thinking, Johnny Kenny, as you mentioned, at Bolton, he did get his first goal for them the weekend before last. There's Sinclair Armstrong as well at Bristol City. There's Tom Cannon, who has no goals since New Year's Day for Sheffield United. And then you've Jack Moylan, who's actually doing quite well at Lincoln City, but he kind of plays in a sort of 10 or behind a striker. So where are you looking in terms of, especially if Ida doesn't come back, if Ogbene probably will come into the squad if he does get another few minutes for Sheffield United, but where are you looking in terms of the other like 2 or 3 to fill that area?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not too fussed. As long as Troy is fit, that's really where my thinking is. And I think we all know if Troy is fit, he's going to play, and he's going to play the majority of the game. Unless we're 4-0 up against the Czech Republic, we might take him off and wrap him in cotton wool for the Dublin game. So, look, I'm not too bothered if you want to throw a Johnny Kenny in there. Ogbene, I imagine, will come into the squad. He'll give us some legs in behind if he has any type of fitness. So it's all much of a muchness for me, Raf. They're not going to get anywhere near the pitch. It's pretty much set in stone for me. But yeah, the likes of a Johnny Kenny at Bolton, why not? If Adam Ida is back in training and maybe feels he can come and do a bit and give us the last 20 minutes, absolutely no problem. But yeah, as long as Troy is starting up there, I'm absolutely buzzing.
Yeah. I think Johnny Kenny or Sinclair Armstrong, I think them two could be two good options, especially if Troy's out on his feet in the away leg. You're looking for, look, we're going to go over there, we're going to try and not concede, sit behind the ball in a low block and try and play in transition. I would imagine that's how Heimer's going to want to play. If Troy's out on his feet, you have Sinclair Armstrong or you could have Johnny Kenny. They're both players who are quick, powerful, and like playing in transition. And
Johnny did well in Budapest as well.
Absolutely, Johnny playing on the show. I've played with Johnny, and see when the European games came around, he was brilliant. He was, because he ran in behind. He put a lot of pressure on the opposition centre halves and didn't give them a minute on the ball. Sinclair Armstrong's very similar to that big, powerful boy. He can run in behind. Physical presence is absolutely incredible. So either of them could come in and do a good job if Troy is out on his feet, as we said.
Yeah, now the price of petrol is rising at the moment, just given everything that is happening at the moment in this world that we live in. But the price of cotton wool is going up in terms of wrapping it around Troy Parrott as well in these few weeks left between now and when Prague happens. But that brings us to a close here. We're obviously going to be back next Monday as well. Now, and don't forget, there's another episode today, which is Rachel Graham and Maeve de Burka, who are going to talk about the women's international games and the start of the new women's Premier Division season. But Keith and Richie, thanks for coming on. We'll be back next week.